Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. My name is Jessamy G. I am joined by the birthday girl, Miss Alice Eady.
I had a dream sitting here. I'm like, it's my birthday, guys. It's my birthday.
You had it locked and loaded.
It's happening.
Yeah, happy birthday, beautiful.
Thank you. I fucking love birthdays. You love birthdays. It's one of our shared passions.
Yes.
Our birthdays, other people's birthdays.
All the birthdays.
Yeah.
And if you are lucky enough to be watching this, not only listening, you'll notice that Alice is wearing a It's My Birthday badge.
It is my birthday. I also have next to me the birthday hat that Jess had. I walked in to Jessamy's house and like on the kitchen table was this beautiful bunch of flowers and next to it a big box of Ferrero Rochers, which longtime listeners will know is basically my crack, and a little birthday hat and a little birthday badge. And then best of all, because dreams come true, a bowl of Ferrero Rocher cereal, which has been truly one of my life goals and just entails a bowl full of smashed Ferrero Rochers and milk. And I fucking ate it with a spoon and it was 1,000% as delicious as I always knew it would be. It fucking delivered on every level.
I am so happy to have been able to deliver this gift to you because I think it was maybe almost a year ago or long. I remember you mentioning it. I'm like, locked. Got it. Locked and loaded. On Alice's birthday, I'm going to have the Ferrero Rochers in the bowl with the milk. I'm going to make this girl's dreams come true.
So it's the two best things in the world. Ferrero Rochers meets cereal. Like what more could you want? It was incredible. Thank you.
You are welcome. Also, like the funnest, like as we speak about love languages a lot on this podcast, and gift giving is my number one love language. So it brings me so much joy to be able to gift you the gift of Ferrero Rocher cereal.
Oh man, it's so good. And also, is it that feeling of, I also love it when you know you're doing a thing that's like 100% going to hit the mark. Like my friend AJ literally actually has a notes document on her phone where she writes down birthday ideas for people like throughout the year. She's just got that list like quietly brewing in the background. So when it comes time for your birthday, she's like the most thoughtful gift giver because like 8 months ago you mentioned that you love cow print or something random.
That is such a good idea because I feel like even for Dan, even for my fucking self, actually, like I think of things through the year, like, oh, that would be a nice, there are things that are just really good present material in that, like, it's something that is like obviously that you like, but it's like a little bit too, okay, perfect example. One of my favorite gifts I've ever gotten are a pair of like rose gold sparkly Ugg boots that Dan got me for my birthday, I don't know, years ago.
Oh, I know them well.
You know
I
them
am
well.
very familiar.
Yeah. For long-term listeners of the podcast, yes, they are the piss slippers. And you can go back to listen to that episode to understand what I mean by that. But I love them because they're like, I don't need them, but also they are like useful. I use them all the time to keep my little tootsies warm. But like, do I need sparkly ones? No. And it feels like just that little bit too extra to go and buy it for yourself.
Exactly.
Like those sorts of gifts that they're not like crazy, like expensive things. They're things that are just like that little bit more fun or ridiculous or something than something you'd buy for yourself.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's that intersection of like practical enough that it means you've paid attention to someone's life and you've noticed like a potential gap, but also not 100% practical because if it was just solving a problem, then they could probably justify doing it themselves. It has to be like, what's happening? What's happening in your face?
So I'm deciding whether because my beautiful dad, who I love more than life itself, is a listener of this podcast. I'm just deciding whether or not it's okay to tell this story. But I think it is because so my gorgeous, wonderful dad is an extraordinarily practical person. He's an accountant, also very creative, I must say, but very, very, very practical. And I think he was not ever in charge of the gift purchasing probably for us as kids.
I love where this is heading.
And it's actually like incredibly sweet and thoughtful at its core. It's just he doesn't quite get the like, if it's only practical, maybe it's not like the thing for a gift.
Yeah.
With a caveat. So I think it was for my birthday last year, he got me hubcaps. He's also previously bought me an electric toothbrush.
Oh my God, I've received the electric toothbrush from parents.
But it's like, it is like, I would much prefer something that's like super practical than like something that ends up, you know, in the bin and is wasteful. But it's just such a funny gift. But then like, so you sort of you're like, okay, like thanks for the hubcaps, Dad. But then the story behind it is, you know, obviously he'd noticed that like that I was missing 2 hubcaps from my old piece of shit car. That's, you know, noticing something about your life. He sought out like where to get them from, ended up like going to pick apart and like going through stuff in the rain, finding the right ones. So it's like while it seems like a sort of absurdly almost practical gift, the layers of intention and thoughtfulness behind it are really there. You just got to peel a little bit further under the surface to find them.
Also,
I love you, Dad.
Those super practical gifts also, they kind of have a slow burn where they end up being the ones on the day itself you're not super pumped about.
Yes.
But then a year later, they're the ones that are still giving you just like a daily injection of joy because it's like a thing you use and it's actually making your life a bit better. And now because of the sentimental story attached to them, you're like, oh, I'm deriving joy from my hubcaps. Who saw that coming?
Well, so I think that's where something like the Ugg boots sit, right? Because they're practical and that I use them all the time. But then the extra layer of joy comes from the fact that they're sparkly.
Well, the way I think of it is like it's a way of mirroring someone. But the best gift is to show someone back the version of themselves that they love. So I always try find a thing that's like a bit practical, but it's like, what are the things about that person that they like? Like all of us have the things about us that we hate, the things that are neutral, the parts of us we're proud of. And I'm like, the best is if you give someone a gift that's in line with it's like how they want to be seen, right?
That is such an excellent point.
So when they're receiving it, it's like a confirmation that other people recognize in them this aspirational thing that they're like, oh, I really like love this about me. And like, look, my friends see it too.
Oh yeah, that is so it. Yes. Yes. It's like I love that you think that I'm the person that would like to wear sparkly Ugg boots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like I'm happy with that.
So
like that's good to know that that's how people see me. And that'll obviously be different for everyone. But like, how does someone want to be seen? And then that's the thing.
Oh, I'd never thought of it in that way before.
Can I just say, like, along the lines of like incredibly practical parental gift givers, my mom, who is not a listener of the podcast, and in fact, I'm not even sure if she knows that we have a podcast, but she's amazing in many, many ways, but she is truly the world's most like deeply practical person. And like anything, any extreme character trait is a strength and a weakness. But like the extent of my mom's practical gift giving would be like when we were kids and we still believed in Santa. It's like I'd hear from other kids like what Santa gave them, and Santa would be giving them like fucking Lego or like toys, just like a bunch of fun plastic crap that you don't really need. And I was like, that's really weird because Santa gives me and my sister like school stationery and also the like set works for next term. Santa has gifted my sister and I like paperweights that had the estate agent logo on them where she used to work.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, when we were like too young to read it, it's like we just like, cool, look at this like weird object. And it was like, no, it was just like a congratulations, Angela and Courtney selling however many houses last year.
You know what? I would have probably fucking loved that as a kid. Like there was something, I mean, stationery to this day, love it, right? Yeah. Because it's the promise of a better me that I never fulfill. Yes.
You know? The moleskin that remains like unused. Yeah.
Look at my binder. Look how many tabs I have. I'm going to color code them.
Yeah, I'm going to be one of these people now.
Never have. Never will.
No, it's okay.
It's all right. But yes, stationery. But also I remember like at my dad's work when I was a kid, also like going into dad's work as a kid, like getting to go into his office. Yeah. Oh, like I remember like the smell of it. It's just because it was a different world. You don't understand anything about offices or corporate world or how that works. You think everything is for you. Like we thought the phones were there so Julia and I could call each other from other ends of the office, and like the little like office toy things were there for us. Like
wait, sorry, the office toy
you know, like things people have on their desk, or like little, you know, like there was like a beanbag frog thing that was always there, like hanging like in a different place.
The bobble heads on someone's keyboard or whatever.
Sorry, I didn't explain that well at all. The office toys, you know the ones.
I was like, do you know?
Was this an office? Yeah. Was this just playgroup?
Oh God, I just remember being so entranced by the idea of a photocopier machine.
Oh my God. Oh, what? And overhead projectors.
Yes.
I remember like drawing on the transparencies and putting it on the overhead projector. Like it was like a playground for us. But I'm getting very excited about Dad's office in like 1990 now. But the company he worked for had a rebrand like not that long before. So they had a lot of stationery and probably stuff like pens and paperweights and whatever that was no longer useful because it had the old branding on it. And all just like as objects, because you don't have any understanding of like what branding is or any of that stuff, but they're all like exciting, weird objects that felt special because they were clean and new. And so I think that probably your mum's real estate paperweight, when I was at a young enough age, I would have been quite thrilled to receive.
Yeah. Well, also because I felt like, so she worked from home and I was so familiar with the logos of the various agencies that she worked with over the years. Like before I understood even what they were or what they meant, but they were just like these markers of something that meant like mom's stuff.
Yes,
like mom's stuff just like says that word SEEF or whatever it was, you know, whatever the company was at the time. And then, we'd get like rolls of stickers. Yeah. There's something also maybe about the volume of it, like corporate, like it's not one thing. It's like a roll of like 500 stickers or paper with logos or I don't know.
Or like opening their stationery cupboard and it was like, oh my God,
like, what is this, Santa's workshop?
This is where it all happens.
Wow. It was really cute the other day. I'd been having this conversation with Tom around at when we were in grade 0, which is in South Africa, like the kind of kindergarten level. And they had like a Santa was coming into school. So obviously all the parents had to buy gifts to pre-give the Santa and then your kid would get the gift.
Yeah.
And all the kids were getting like whatever, like fun plastic toys. And I was so excited. And that was the year the GAC was the thing. Do you remember this?
Oh my God. Memory unlocked.
Right?
GAC.
Right?
Fuck.
And I'd seen the ad on TV and I just was convinced. I was like, this is my destiny. Like my destiny is GAC. There's no other way that this could possibly go. And like a bunch of the other kids had gotten it. And I was like waiting. And then it came to my turn and Santa gave me a fucking illustrated encyclopedia. Like, thanks. Thank you for this. Like actually, on reflection, quite a beautiful object and like a really, probably something that I would now buy a friend's child.
Yeah, and they'd be like, where's my GAC, bitch?
What the fuck is this shit? But I was just so gutted. Like all you want when you're a kid is the like gross plastic tacky or whatever.
Yeah.
And Tom ordered some online and it arrived the other day and I was so happy. I was like this is the best. But then, so he's like, so I'm like, thank you. And then I put it on my desk, like nice so I could see it. And he's like, are you not going to open it? Yes. Yeah. And like genuine, that didn't even occur to me. I was like, no, but it's like so the precious. Object, the object, it's like, I've got my GAC. Like the value of GAC is not for me. It didn't even cross my mind to play with it. I was like, no, but it's like this thing that means that someone's listened to me, they've loved me, they've put in this effort to do this really thoughtful thing. Like that will feel better than whatever slimy deliciousness is inside that plastic container.
I remember how gack smells. Like I can pull up that memory in my mind. Did you open it?
No. It's on my desk now. I don't know if I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's your birthday. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't even for my birthday. It was just as like a cute.
Oh, I thought this just happened.
No, sorry. No, this happened like 6 months ago.
Tom, you
I know. Podcast shout out to Tom.
That's I know what you mean though with those like, do you want to keep it as a symbol or like play with it? Gack, by the way, I don't know if it's genius or just like the height of stupidity, but I guess it's genius because I'm very surprised to hear it still exists. But it's not even like Play-Doh that you can make stuff out of. It's just like slime that kind of feels nice to handle and smells weird. Like to my memory, it doesn't do anything else.
But also even, I mean, as we've established, excuse me, like I never owned my own, but from what I can see of every fucking other kid in their gack, is like within 4 hours, it's disgusting. It has crumbs, it has your dog hairs in it, you've dropped it on the floor in the kitchen. Like it's not even, I mean, I don't know.
Is this also why you're not opening it? Because you don't feel like you could be a responsible gack owner?
It's given me way too much credit. It genuinely, I think that was just the part that surprised me was every now and then you realize, you know, when your automatic response to something is so automatic to you that it's shocking to hear that there's any other way to think about the thing. And it was just that moment of like, it just didn't cross my mind that it would be a thing I'd open and play with. I was like, it's so precious.
It's a fun, like I think of that with, you know, people who collect toys or whatever and that's their thing, which I understand from a like, no, I guess the whole point of this conversation is to say I don't understand. I understand it logically, you know, but I can't like viscerally understand getting a thing and not playing with it. Or it's like, you know, having like your special pair of shoes that you'd never wear out or whatever. Or that you're so nervous about you can't enjoy them.
Yeah.
Which does mean I ruin things a lot more than people who do that.
But you enjoy them.
Yeah, but and I think this is not like a value judgment on one way or the other, but it's exactly that thing of like when you're so sure of like the correct use of something for you that it's like what do you mean take it out and play with it? Or the opposite would probably be true for me. Like, what do you mean just like sit there and look at it? Like, don't you want to feel the gack in your fingers? Isn't that the whole point of gack?
Yeah, no, and you're right because it's almost like the equivalent of having those plastic covers on your sofa forever, which was such a thing. I mean, I'm sure people still do it, but I haven't really seen it as much. But I remember growing up, it was kind of like a thing. Some people's parents would have like the sofa covers and stuff, or some people's grandparents would have that. And I understand this idea of like taking care of something that, especially if it's like a lounge suite or something, was expensive. People want to take care of it. They want it to last and look good. But also, to what end? So you never sit on your actual sofa. You're never comfortable. But at the end of all of it, you can like reveal it and it's still in perfect condition. It's like, well.
And then you just
what the fuck
close your eyes
and die. On it. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I suppose it's like people not wanting to get tattoos or whatever, and you're like, well, we're all going to one place. Like, you're not gonna. This doesn't end perfectly.
Yes,
just ride it into the ground.
You know, that's funny you should say that actually, because my first tattoo I got like maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago now. It was definitely like it was in between lockdowns, and I had amazed myself that I'd gotten that far without getting a tattoo, but I just never there was never anything that like resonated enough for me to want to put it on my body. And I was like, I don't know, maybe one day. Certainly wasn't against the idea, kind of always thought that I would. Very happy that I didn't have any money to when I wanted to at 16, because I would definitely have like a tribal tramp stamp, barbed wire.
Hello.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like it's about to come back around again now. So, you know, but so I think in the like depths of COVID, Melbourne lockdowns, etc., the sort of like like bodies are here to be enjoyed, life is here to be lived. It was almost like I'm trying to think of how to phrase this properly. When you're saying like we all end up in the same place, it was almost like an acknowledgement of mortality, but that sounds much more bleak than it was. It was more like it actually doesn't matter. Like you like that pattern, and that's what it ended up being. It's just like a traditional Japanese textile pattern that I just like, and I just put some of it on my shoulder. I'm like, done.
That was it. But I think that there's so much to be said for this idea, and I think it's becoming more and more part of it now, but like finding a design that you think is beautiful rather than needing something to be so overwrought with like infused meaning. And I think that it was maybe like a early millennial, you know, we were teenagers just as the trend of like reality TV tattoo shows came out. And those are always stories. It's never just someone who's like, hey, I saw a cool thing and I'm getting it tattooed. Like they self-select for dramatic stories, and it's always someone's died, someone's lost someone. It's like major life event that's in some way going to be commemorated by this like super meaningful piece. Yeah. Which is fine. It's one way to do it. But like, I think it became like a thing where you had to have some kind of like incredibly quote unquote like deep reason for it. And you're like, no, you can decorate your body in the way that humans have been decorating our bodies, with makeup, with jewelry, our hair, with clothes forever. That is like a very ancient and very like that in itself is a good enough reason to put something on your body.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly, you worded it perfectly. Like that was where my brain was at in the moment, was like, I just want to, like, I'm in this thing, life is weird and uncertain, like decorate it with stuff that makes you happy. Yeah. It doesn't have to have a point or a purpose. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
And we haven't spoken about this on the podcast, have we? Just in the newsletter. That you did your first tattoo.
Yes. We actually haven't even, like you and I haven't even had this conversation offline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fucking did.
Congrats. So for newer listeners who may not be aware, Alice is at the start of a new career journey, a career change from illustration into tattooing.
Speaking of massive imposter syndrome, there it is.
Well, but you did it.
I did it. So it's been, what was significant about last week was it was a year since making the decision to do the shift. And just in my head, I was like, I really want to, within that year, like I've been practicing in the background, like you can get all this fake skin. So I've been tattooing fake skin for a year, just kind of like learning how those tools work in, you know, which ways are they similar to drawing, which ways are they different to drawing, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just love the idea that like within that year before my birthday this year, to have just done at least one tattoo on a human. And it's taken frustratingly long because I was finishing my master's and then I've been getting back into work. So I'm so fucking ready and so hungry for it. But yeah, so I found an amazingly generous tattooist who sat with me last week, and he helped me, and I did my first tattoo on a human, and it was on me. It was on my thigh, and I did it's the wing of a Cape monarch butterfly, which is very common in South Africa. So yeah, just a little piece of home, little stick and poke number.
Beautiful.
Thank you, my
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's something that I know. I mean, yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy with how it came out. I definitely also know that in time I will look back and be like, fucking, this is so you know, did that wrong, whatever. But that is the point. And I love that, you know, you have this thing it's going to change over time as it settles in, but like I'm also going to change over time. And first step, and yeah.
But I think you will continue to love it because it's part of your story.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also just sharing it, I kind of just was like, fuck it, I'm putting it out there. This was very inspired by you, Jess, by the way, I need to say, because you're like so good at being like, an idea is not a real thing while it's just bouncing around inside your head. And like I've seen, even in the 5 years that I've known you, but especially in the last year that we've kind of worked together on this podcast, like you get the idea and you are like, fucking share it, put it in the world, throw it out there, like see who it resonates with, where it bounces. Like maybe it works out the way you had it in your head. Maybe there's a different version of events that comes back as a response, but like it cannot become anything real until you've shared it, which is so scary.
It is so, and thank you, darling. That's really lovely to say. And it's definitely been a journey for me to get to that point of realizing that. And sometimes, like, you know, it means I've put half-baked shit out in the world that probably could have used a little longer in the oven. But that's okay. You can find where the happy medium sits. But yes, but it is scary. And so tell me what happened as a result.
Oh, well, I literally got fucking booking, like so many bookings. I'm like,
She's
what?
booked and blessed.
So they're all at the moment it's like all free stuff. It's not it's very much with the caveat that I'm like, I'm a baby, I'm a beginner. I wouldn't offer to do it if I didn't know. Like it'll be good. Yeah. It's not going to be perfect, and that's part of it. And especially with a stick and poke, like a hand poke, that's kind of part of that aesthetic, and that's part of what's poetic and beautiful about it. And also they can come back in 6 months and I'll fix it up and we can like do touch-ups and stuff. And but it's crazy.
Yeah, I'm so fucking proud of you, Alice Edie. I'm so fucking proud of you. And and the people who are putting their hand up for that, they're not like, oh, I'm tolerating this because she's new. Like that would be the thing that appeals to them about doing is like, I get to be part of the start of this story. How exciting. And not like the tattoo that you made on yourself is fucking beautiful. I'm talking like it'll be a bit shit, but they won't mind. Like it looks, what you're doing looks to me incredible. Like there's nothing about it that says beginner to me at all. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Can I just say, like, while I was doing it, I was like, thank fucking God I did not start this at 16, because all of my friends would have been covered. Like if I'd known how good this was in high school, I would have just like fucking covered so many friends in what would have by now been like 25 years old, very dodgy tattoos. So
but you would have had a great time. I'm like, I'm not really seeing the downside.
I would have loved it. And it was always there, but I don't know why. Sometimes, you know those things that are just so obvious that sometimes you don't let yourself see them?
Yeah.
Like I can track this back even in year 12. Like we had to do a week where we job shadowed someone in their place of work. And it's like I went to the fucking tattoo shop in our local mall and worked. Yeah. Like, I mean, it was there. 17-year-old me knew.
But sometimes the things just have to line up at the right time in the right way. Like it can be, like I don't think it's useful to think like, I'm trying to think, there was an example of this recently, but it's not coming to mind. Like, oh, like why didn't I realize this 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever? It's like because for what, like you didn't for some good reason. Yeah. You know, like things weren't there. You weren't ready to make a change. You wouldn't have been as good at it. You're better now after having this many years of different styles of illustration. I'm making things up here. But it didn't happen then because it didn't happen then. Do you know what? Like there's no use of being like, oh, I wish I'd done this a million years ago. It's like, you know, sometimes I catch myself thinking that about like physical stuff, like, oh, what if I'd like played a sport or been more active when I was a teenager? Then I'm like, but there is no world in which 13-year-old Jessamy was going to the gym. Like there is just not a world in which that would ever have happened. So it's completely pointless, like going back into like rewriting those stories in your imagination because like she was smoking ciggies and macking out with boys. Like that's it.
She was too fucking busy.
She was very busy.
But also, and I mean it is such a it's almost like such a meaningless statement to try and move time around. It's like being at uni and being like, wow, uni is cool. If only I'd done this when I was 10.
Right.
I'd have a fucking PhD by now. And you're like, but you couldn't have because that's not who you were.
Because yes, exactly. Exactly right. But what kind of tattoo are you going to give me?
Any and all. You got a free forever voucher.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Can we do it soon?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because I want to be at the start of the story.
So one of my friends, actually, Marianne, had a really great suggestion, which is like, she said to choose something really small, and then, because the tattoo that I did last week's on my thigh, and kind of choose something small, and then every year redo that same image, so that over time you get to see the change. Like you can track I don't know what it would be, but something that's kind of like similar enough that you could see the kind of progression over time.
Oh, that's a cute idea.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because it's working with imperfection in the beginning that's like you're factoring that into the design. It's not something to correct. It's something to like, that's part of the story.
Can you tell me about what it was like doing it on yourself?
It was, so what was interesting was, so I sat with the tattooist, and he was amazing. He was so generous with his time, and I'm only not mentioning him by name because I don't know like how we would feel about it, and that industry can be sometimes strange. But basically he was incredible, and like we'd both sterilized like both of our hands, and everything was sterile, and we'd kind of pass the needle back and forth, and he'd poke one line and kind of teach me, and then hand the needle over, and then I would poke, and he'd kind of give me feedback while I was doing it, and then go back and kind of correct or show me how to like think about different parts, or how to maybe do stuff differently. So it was super, super helpful. But what was really interesting was, I mean, it's obviously fairly painful, like you're putting a needle into your skin repeatedly, but it was so much more painful when he was doing it. And he was going much shallower than I was. Like in the beginning, I was going way too deep, because my kind of reference point for skin depth was pain based. Like I was kind of feeling the pain when he was doing it, and then I was trying to replicate that pain. But because when I'm doing it, I'm concentrating so much, the pain is secondary to that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it was
I don't know.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's fascinating. For some reason I thought maybe it would be the other way around, like it would hurt less when the other person is doing it. I guess it's probably different individual to individual as well, but
it was just also beautiful. Like something I wasn't expecting, because I've been working with the electric pen needle thing. Yeah. And this was hand poke, was just like slowing it down, and how beautiful that practice was. Like sitting with someone and taking 2.5 hours individually, kind of manually putting each single dot in your skin, and like something about building that time with someone.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful practice to sit with another human and thinking about. It kind of really made me think back to COVID as well, and like that hunger, that skin hunger of like 2 years of not fucking feeling another human touch your skin. And there's just something that's so beautiful about this intimacy of like someone's got to be touching you the whole time. You know, there's like this body to body, this skin contact, there's fucking blood and fluids, and like you've obviously got to be really, really careful around hygiene and all of those kind of things. But like it's so intimate, and then adding that extra level of time to it made me so honestly just made me so excited. I was like, this is a beautiful practice. I love it.
So exciting. You're doing it.
Yeah.
Imposter no more.
I mean, massive imposter. Well, massive fucking imposter. I'm even like, honestly, even speaking about it now to you, but knowing that this is recorded and knowing that recording exists, and what, like, I'm feeling nervous. It's scary. It's like in a good way, but it's scary talking about this thing, because I'm like, fuck, I'm such a baby.
Yeah, but that's okay. Yeah, that's how things start. Yeah, you can't jump in halfway through. Got to start at the start.
Yeah, I keep thinking that just being a beginner at a thing.
Yeah.
How are you going with, like, I feel like there was a stage last year, and maybe, I don't know, maybe not as much this year, but like last year you were doing so many new things. Maybe you are this year as well, but I'm thinking specifically around like the burlesque and kind of like the hoops. Like it felt like you were beginning a lot of things.
Yeah.
Are you still, or are you?
I'm definitely seduced by like the shininess of something new. But I'm trying, like I think we've spoken about this in a few recent episodes, like trying to kind of edit a little bit more, just because like I love doing that and it's really fun. But when it gets to a point where like things all line up at the same time, you know, things that are and then things that are meant to be fun become a chore because you just like put too many of them in together. And also like we've spoken about this recently too, but like if you're spreading your attention too thin, then just being like, and not that the point is to be like really good at a thing when it's just a hobby, but like the more time you spend on it, if the better you are at it, the more enjoyable it is, really, you know. So it's not about like winning a thing or being the best. But I did an interesting exercise last week around that idea of editing. Just thinking about why I want to do all the things that I do, which was interesting, right? Because it's like, oh, because I like it. But there are actually different reasons. So like, you know, so for CrossFit, for example, for me, that's mainly about community more than anything else. Well, community and, you know, and that's my like daily fitness thing. So fitness, community, and like learning new skills. Because there's a lot of like because there's a bajillion different things in it. You can never be good. There's like gymnastics and weightlifting and it's a real like massive like cross-section of different types, hence the name CrossFit.
This is honestly like I did not know this. It's been like a closed box. I'm like, it's in there's ropes. I don't know.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, seeing all of you motherfuckers who are like, people who do CrossFit always talk about CrossFit, 5 years. She doesn't even know what it is. There you go. But yeah, there's basically all that to say there's always something new to learn in that. But so, and this was coming into my mind because this weekend, there's a CrossFit competition on, which a bunch of people from our gym are doing. It's like, it's low stakes fun, like a partner thing. And it will be fun and it does definitely tick the community box because there's a bunch of people going and doing it, and my partner Claire, who I love dearly, you know, we'll have a great time doing it together. She is much more competitive than I am. So I'm like, it's going to be okay. But I think potentially in future, having done that exercise, maybe I'll be less inclined to enter competitions in the future. It's something that I've done and really enjoyed in the past, but I think that's when I was sort of more on a trajectory because like I guess with many things, like when you start, you've got a pretty steep trajectory upwards and that like you're starting from zero, so you're constantly like getting fitter, stronger, learning more and more of the new skills, and then you sort of get to a point where you plateau a bit and you can definitely still like keep learning new skills and stuff, but the progress gets slower and slower. So I think it's really fun when you're in that like uphill climb, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this thing and this thing and this thing, and it's super fun. But I'm not actually sure that serves my intention of like community, fitness and building new skills. So like that might be, so it's not like cutting out that activity entirely. It's just looking at it and being like, what is it about this that I love that kind of serves me the most? And so within that, like, do I need to do every single part of it? Probably not.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me about our conversation last week or the week before around the things you want to do and the things you want to do. And it's not quite the same thing, but I often notice that it's worth reflecting on. Sometimes a thing that made you really happy, that you can't keep doing the same things necessarily because the rest of your context has changed. So that thing doesn't necessarily bring you the same joy that it used to. It doesn't fit the role that it used to. And sometimes you just like accept, you're like, oh yeah, I do that. I do this because I like this.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, maybe, but also maybe it's okay. It's also okay if it doesn't feel the same anymore. Like maybe there's something else or.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's less that probably because I do like, I would love to do all of the things and all of the parts, but it's like if I want to do that, like, and dancing and running and whatever other things, it's like it was useful to me to look at it and be like, well, what parts kind of matter the most? And what can be sort of, like scaled down a bit. And it's actually not because of a like wanting to. Like I want to do all the things, that there just aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things. And then it just becomes like we were saying, items on the to-do list and that's not the point.
Yeah, or you're like rushing to finish one because you've got to get to the next thing to get to the next thing. You're like, how did I just turn the things that I love into homework?
Yeah,
like, that's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is a bit of a long bow to draw, but speaking of homework.
All right. Did I do the values thing? No.
Oh, that's not what I was going to ask.
I fucked myself.
You just fucked yourself up, girl.
Oh, shit. I will, though.
Okay.
It's a great exercise.
Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. Put a pin in it. You'll find out maybe next week. Who knows? No, so I've been doing some work at a high school this week. So I work quite a lot with schools and I love it. It's one of my favourite work to do is within education. So this was working with teachers, but it could be with teachers or with students. I just think it's real fun and it's a really good application of like graphic recording and visual communication. I've had a particular interest in the last little while around the like how like visual organization and visual thinking can help kids in their study and also in sort of like understanding content in a different way, how they collaborate on things, how they note take, all that sort of stuff. Unsurprisingly, a big deal in schools at the moment is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's basically fucking like just chucked a bomb in the school system and everyone's like, fuck, what do we do with it? And you can ban it or whatever, but like you can't, essentially the cat's out of the bag, Pandora's box is opened, that's it. So one of the fabulous speakers they had at this conference this week was talking about how essentially this is probably going to mean the death of the essay as assessment, which I think, fuck yeah, that's great. It basically means they have to completely rethink how they're doing assessment, which is long overdue already anyway, right? But this is exciting to me and I realised a couple of things. Firstly, like the role of the kind of work that we do in that could be super interesting and I'm very excited to explore that a little bit more. But I was thinking back on my own experience of school because I never really I don't feel like I ever knew how to study or how to take notes, which is hilarious because I take notes for a living now. So funny, particularly teachers will say oh, you must have been great doing this at school. I'm like, I had no idea how to do this at school.
I was I was doing this on the tables and getting detention.
I was too busy drawing angels crying.
the tear with a mascara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
so deep.
An eye with a tear, but then the world in the tear. And maybe it's on fire.
So deep, Jessamine.
It's got wings. Yeah.
No one gets you.
Yeah. Yes, I was a teen goth, if you're wondering. But I despite my best efforts, I did okay at school. I was very not I was not very studious, as in I didn't care a lot. The social aspects of school were much more important to me. But I still did pretty well. And this is going to make me sound like a dick, but I found school relatively easy. And I think that happens for people who are good at writing and who I wasn't good at learning, I was good at school, which is a totally different thing. So if I look at Dan, for example, he is someone who is so interested in learning that school was horrible for him because the school system, at least the ones that he and I were in, were not set up for people who genuinely want to learn. So he was sort of basically looked at as being disruptive or a naughty kid because he had questions.
Which is so knowing Dan, it's so wild.
He has so many questions.
I mean, he has so many questions, but in the right context, you're right. That's the difference between school as an institutional structure and learning as an ideal. Because if what you are after is learning, Dan is exactly who you want in that conversation because he is so curious. He's got a million questions. He wants to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're talking about school as a structure where X amount needs to be delivered and these worksheets and these tasks and these assessments, like that would be disruptive, right? Because if the boxes you need to tick as the teacher are not the same as the boxes that Dan is asking questions about.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he left school halfway through year 12, took a year off school. Obviously, like I can imagine why everyone would be pissed, because you're so close, dude. You're so close. Just hang in for the last 6 months. But he had so had it by that stage. He took a year off school and went, I'm going to spend half my time at the skate park and half my time in the library. And I reckon that's why Dan has one of the best general knowledges of anyone I've ever met, is because largely due to like that year of self-education. Like I don't know any fucking 17-year-olds. Well, I didn't when I was 17. They seem to be a lot smarter now.
Oh, they're way smarter.
Yeah. But I certainly wasn't one. Like if I was taking a year off off my own back, decide to spend half my time at the library learning because I wanted to learn. This is a kid who was like basically shoved out of the school system, who just fucking wanted to learn. Isn't that insane?
It's
and
also,
like such an appalling reflection on the school system that this kid had to be like, well, fuck it. Like I'm just going to go and spend my time at the library. He did go back and finish year 12 at a different school after taking that year off. But
I just think it's wild to, I mean, like first year at that age, if I'd taken a year off, I would have just smoked weed for the entire year and done absolutely fucking nothing.
I'm sure he did plenty of that too, but yeah.
But like, yeah, that's incredible. I also think it's testament, there are a few things there, but just testament to a really healthy way of thinking about it, that half the time was at the skate park. Like it wasn't, because I think if his plan had been to be like this monk and spend 100% of the time in the library, what would have happened would have been an intense 2 weeks and then never again. Yeah. But the fact that like half of the time was structured, was going to be play.
Yeah.
So that when he was at the, you know what I mean? He intuitively had like a sense that you'd need both if you were going to sustain that for a year.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that he would necessarily have seen it as play though. Like he was pretty seriously into skating as a kid, so it would have been more like I'm gonna get to be a really fucking awesome skater and learn some stuff. So like, but yeah, like it's essentially is play. I think it's like, to me, like that is like I'm in love with 17-year-old Dan and 41-year-old Dan, but I just think that is so fucking cool. Like anyway, this isn't just to talk about how cool my husband is, but I just think it's really interesting now reflecting on that and thinking about my experience and being sort of conscious of it at the time, like being like sort of feeling like I kind of like I've got the cheat codes, like kind of feeling like I'm getting away with not learning, which I didn't care about when I was 16, 17 because I didn't value it that much. But I think by the time I was so disappointed in university, it's why I only stayed there for a hot minute. But it's sort of been built up as this thing that was going to be so different. It was going to be so different from high school. And I think by that stage, I wanted to learn at least somewhat more than I did the year before. But it was, I was studying whatever it was, like a design degree. I was excited about this like big different thing where you're going to have all this independence and be treated like an adult, and then getting there and being like, this is exactly the fucking same. And I still have the cheat codes, and not knowing how to learn in any other way. I guess the point of all this to say is like with this, what's happening right now with this complete rethink of assessment, that would have served me really well, I think, because I'm sure I would have pushed back on it somewhat at the beginning because I'm like, no, you're taking away my keys.
Yeah.
But it would have forced me to actually learn. Like I don't remember shit from high school. I'm sure most people don't, but I'm like nothing.
Yeah.
No, I'm almost sure I learned nothing.
I totally in a different way, but can relate to that idea of feeling like there was definitely a window where I felt I could game that system and that it had nothing whatsoever to do with learning or intelligence. But it just so happened that of a group of 30 kids in a class, some of them happened to have, they're all varying kind of skill sets. Some have the particular skill sets that align with the way that assessments were done.
Exactly.
I was one of those kids. And I remember afterwards, like that rude awakening of kind of getting to the later years of uni where it required way more, firstly, like self-driven investigation, self-structured investigation. Like the writing side of it was luckily always something I felt fairly confident in, but definitely like the ability to learn and to kind of like marshal my attention and like focus on a thing and especially a thing that projects that were bigger than what you could do in one night, like that, like because I never had to learn how to learn, right? And I mean I'm so grateful for it now, but it was like massive fucking the floor falling out from underneath you, and I was like, oh my God, am I going to be one of these? Like, did I peak in high school? Like that was like a deep, dark, like fear of mine. I think basically the whole way through my 20s.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, fuck. Like you thought you were going to be okay.
Something.
You thought you were going to be okay because you happened to be good at being a fucking in grade 8 or whatever.
Yeah.
Or grade 10 or whatever the different years are. And I was like, wow, that is in no way related to anything.
Well, and that's it. I think you sort of, I don't know who the you is in this sentence, but you just sort of make the mistake of thinking that it's an advantage to have the certain, skill set or whatever that happens to work with that particular assessment process. And okay, so it's an advantage to you like having an easier time at school. But in terms of life, it's a massive disadvantage in a lot of ways. Because
I totally agree with that. It's like if I had a kid, I would never want a kid getting like A grades through high school. Like that would stress. I'd be like, the world is going to fucking hurt when you land because like this means nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but from the system that we grew up in, sure. But hopefully, like whatever this fucking new assessment thing is, which might even not look anything like ABC, not only just like the way it's tested, but the result as well could be something completely different where it does actually give you some good feedback. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, just interesting to sort of reflect on that this week and think like how like teaching someone how to learn is so much harder. And I feel like that's why people haven't done it yet because it's really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like fostering curiosity, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like finding ways to not forget the why and like to keep asking that stuff. But I also did a job recently in a similar vein. It was also within an educational context and the chat GPT came up.
It's a biggie.
It's a huge one. And it was really interesting. Like there were a few speakers talking on it, but the one person made this point where there were pros and cons, right? Like half of them were like, absolutely not. It's got to be out of the classroom. We've got to find a way to regulate it. And then the other half just being like, the horse has left the barn, like it's happened. And they were talking about ways to rethink teaching where they factored it in.
Yeah.
So for example, they would, instead of setting the essay topic and a bunch of kids going and just asking ChatGPT to write it, as a class, they would ask ChatGPT to write it. And then the kids would grade that essay and give reasons why. So not only just be like, yes, that's a good sentence or no, that one isn't, but actually like in their own words to express why that argument worked, that one didn't, that part was clumsy, that was,
I love that.
So smart.
Yeah, it's so clever. And obviously there are going to be opportunities and threats with any of this stuff. So it's not to say like, yes, it's just a great thing that we have to embrace or like, no, it's just the devil and we have to keep it out of the classroom. Like both kind of sides of that coin need to be considered. But it would be just like insanely naive to be like, la, 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 close your eyes and put your hands over your ears and be like, it's not going to happen. Like it's happening, dude.
It's happened. It's happened. Yeah.
It's happened.
It's I suppose like anything, it's like a tool. A hammer is neither a good nor a bad thing. It depends. Are you building a house or are you smashing someone's head in?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and the amount of speakers that I've heard recently, because again, like a lot of the conferences and events I'm working at, some version of this comes up. And the amount of people who are saying, I use ChatGPT to write this talk. Now, obviously, they are not putting the input into ChatGPT and then reading out the exact output, but they're using it as an antidote to that, like looking at a blank page and being like, what the fuck am I going to write?
Well, it's providing the first draft, but it's like writing is in the editing. So really, like, exactly, get shit on the page and then move it around. Why is that what you mean? And if it's not what you mean, it's now easier for you to clarify or explain or unpack what that would be.
Yeah, and I'd be almost certain that the end point would be like 80 to 90% different from the start point, but it's just to have some structure in there to work around, because there's nothing worse than like you open a Word document and you've got the like flashing cursor and you're like, well, what now?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's famously the painter looking at the blank canvas. It's like a lot of painters will literally just like smear paint on that canvas and then paint a base layer kind of over that, because you're not going to see any of it in the final, but it's just so much easier working over something.
Yeah, exactly. I gave it a go because of our horrible thing that we do with our guests where we get them to read their own bio at the start of every interview episode. I've been very aware of wanting to rewrite my bio. So I let ChatGPT have a go, and it wasn't great, but it was a good start. And what it did was it got me to start doing the activity. So the end point of that, which still I don't feel like it's got the right tone. I just can't get the right tone in there. Anyway, it's a work in progress. But the main value for me in that was just starting the task.
Yeah, and it's like lowering the barrier to entry, because it's like you say, it's not you sitting, opening a blank doc and looking at the cursor flash. It's like there's something there, and you can now your job is to respond to that thing. You're like, I like that sentence. I don't like that sentence. That works. That doesn't. Like, that's so much.
And I think especially, part of the whole like reason that we get people to do that is that discomfort that comes, we don't do it just to make them uncomfortable, but the interesting things that it says about us and how we view ourselves, how uncomfortable it can be reading things that we've written about ourselves that are really exist to tell people like how great we are at stuff. So I think for that as well, that particular application was so great because it takes some of the ick out of it, because it even though like you are giving it, like you are feeding it the thing and it's coming back, it feels like now someone else has written it and you're just editing their work rather than you being like, Jessica G is an accomplished illustrator, blah, 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 blah. Accomplished. Someone called me that this week.
That's so nice. I love it because it feels almost quite Victorian.
Accomplished.
She's an accomplished cellist.
Accomplished.
I'm like, what did you accomplish?
Idiot.
No.
Yeah, it's a nice word, isn't it? Yeah, I was quite chuffed. Difficult, accomplished at something.
I still haven't actually been on ChatGPT. A friend, do you know Jeff? Jeff the Pef?
Yeah,
amazing illustrator.
Yeah.
He was playing on it in the studio the other day, and he was using it for kind of some conceptual illustrations, just to I think like more as an experiment. And it was amazing, actually, the quality of metaphor that it was turning back. So I think the client was doing a presentation and he needed to say, like, do some small illustrations to go with slides that would be like, the usual kind of like agile, teamwork, collaboration, like kind of concepts that then needed quite a metaphoric image.
Yeah.
And I think he'd put the word in and was like, what could I draw to illustrate this concept?
Ooh.
Yeah. And it was honestly, it scared the shit out of me, to be quite honest. Like, because I think he was very good at asking for the right thing. Like, I think he'd refined his question, but the suggestions were actually like really poetic and metaphoric and like high level. So it wasn't like, oh, what can I draw for teamwork? And it wasn't like, oh, a bunch of people giving a high five. Like it was quite evolved. I wish I could think of an example now, but I was quite taken aback with actually like they were some were insane, but there were loads that were really fucking good. And I often like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm so happy I found this like niche of illustration where, you know, clip art exists, but people hire us because we take a more nuanced, more metaphoric, more holistic view of these things. You can't just buy fucking stock images off the internet to illustrate a talk. You need a human there to filter it and like pick out meaningful ways to represent it. And I was like, all right.
But you hit on something there with the way in which he was framing the questions, right? So it's like it is kind of scary. I don't know. I have not completed any of my thoughts around any of this stuff because it's all so new, and particularly when we get into things like Midjourney that are using actual like, you know, like artists' work that's been sort of without permission, kind of crowdsourced from the internet to create new things. I actually have not had time to. When I say I have not had time, I don't mean like in my busy schedule, like that enough time that this beat has been around has not passed for me to kind of work out exactly how I feel about it. There's a really excellent comic that I will share a link to by David Blumenstein, who's a Melbourne artist, like a really, really awesome comics artist, exploring exactly this. And it was one of the best things I've read on the subject this was like specifically around sort of like illustration and art and comics, because it's just genuinely an exploration. Like he spoke to a bunch of people from different sides of it. Cool. So it's not a like, this is terrible, I will hear nothing else, and like this is unfair to artists, shut it down, nothing. And it's definitely not like, oh, but there's so many opportunities. Like it's something sort of in the middle, like, and again, the horse is bolted kind of thing, like, but this is happening, so now what? Anyway, it's a balanced, really interesting, funny.
He's a smart guy.
He's a very fucking smart guy.
I would love to see that. And I think it is kind of to your earlier statement, I just think it's so important to remember with this stuff that you and again, like not you, just me, just one. Yeah. Like you don't have to have an opinion on these things. Yeah. Like we get to be engaged and curious and discovering in real time, and there'll be great things, there'll be less great things. We'll see as it unfolds and when we want to kind of think about it. But it's like, I don't know. We don't have to have a fucking opinion on it. Like you do, like either, you know, we can be okay. We can just hold this space, be like, I like.
This is the problem with the internet, I think, is that the internet wants you to have an opinion straight away about a thing. And if you don't speak up about the thing, then you're not supporting this or that or whatever. No. Or it's like, well, are you on the right side of this thing? It's like, you need to fucking give me a minute. I don't know what I think yet. I have no idea what I think.
And that's a position. Yeah. That's like I think there's a difference between I don't know because I've put my head in the sand and I can't be fucked to engage with difficult things. Yeah. That's not great. Yeah. I'm not advocating for that. But the other version of that is like, I don't know can be an intellectual position, which is like, I am standing here and I am asking questions and I'm curious and I'm trying to listen to as many different pieces of this. And my position is that I don't know. And that's like a generative, healthy place to be.
Yes, I agree entirely. I think, and this is like a cop-out thing to say that you say about all new technology. It's not really a cop-out because it is true. The fact that there will always be opportunities and challenges with any of this stuff. But I think to just come from a place of fear or feeling like something is unfair. But, I understand it too. It's not like there's parts of me that isn't like, oh, fuck, like is this a robot coming for my job? But people have also been saying that forever, for fucking ever. So, like the printing press didn't make us all idiots, for example. Like, there's just I think it's good to take a minute while also not being like, it'll be fine, I'll just let this happen, and then being, fucking Blockbuster Video or whatever.
Are you in general an early adopter or a late adopter?
Oh, that's a good question. I wouldn't say, what's the one after early adopter, like early joiner or something? You know, there's like a timeline.
Oh, it's like a spectrum of like,
Yeah.
is this the one where it's like you see one guy, is it the video of the
dancing
festival?
on the hill? Yeah. Can you tell we work in corporate workshop?
For anyone who
It is a good
hasn't seen
video.
it's a great video. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a corporate favorite when they're talking about I guess like the power of a crowd and leadership.
Yes.
But there's like, it's footage of some dude at a festival and he's just like, people are sitting on a hill, they're all chilling, they're hanging out. One dude just stands up and he's like dancing, he's jamming, he's having the best time. He looks insane.
Yeah.
But he doesn't give a shit. And then eventually like someone stands up and joins him.
Yeah.
And then there's kind of like a third person and then a fourth and a fifth are kind of like, yeah, it looks fun, funny. They stand up and jump in and there's kind of this ripple effect and like it gains this momentum. And by the end of it, everyone on the hill is like standing, dancing.
Yeah. And then you look silly if you're not standing and dancing. Yeah. Yeah. I'll find a link to it and share it. It is a really good video. But I would say I'm probably like somewhere in the middle, I would say. Like slightly to the earlier side than the later side, but definitely not like I want to see a couple of other people dance first.
Yeah. Fair,
I mean, dancing is a bad example because I will dance alone on a hill any day of the week.
In that specific.
Yeah. I think it depends what it is though too, because technology is not like my thing. It's not something that I'm scared of. Like, oh, I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know how it works, but I don't know how anything works. But it's definitely not something that I have like a deep natural understanding of or really excitement about either.
Yeah.
So it's much more utilitarian for me when I think about like how I use technology in my work and life. It's like it's serving a purpose. Like I would be unlikely to get excited about a new type of phone or AI or whatever. But when I can see the application for it, which means that someone else has already kind of like tested the water a bit, that's when I'd be like, oh, cool, like this is something that could help me. Whereas I think other people for whom that is their world, they're like, oh, this is exciting. There's a new thing I want to play and see what it does.
It's like innovation for innovation's sake. Like for some people, the very fact of newness is exciting.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's like new is cool, but it's new in terms of, like how does it solve a problem I have?
Yeah, exactly. In this context.
Yeah.
It's
a thing I've realized about myself that I try correct for, but I'm definitely, I would say I fall into like a late adopter, especially with tech stuff. But like famously, I'm just so bad at knowing when any tech thing is actually going to be good that I've had to learn to like not trust my knee-jerk response to it. Like I remember
that's interesting.
I remember my friend getting an iPod the first time and I literally was like,
that'll never take off.
I was like, I've got an MP3 player. Like, why would I want that shit?
I've got a Walkman, so
yeah. I'm like, we've solved for this. Like, why? She's like, you can fit like 1,000 songs on it. I was like, 1,000? There aren't even 1,000 songs.
I don't know 1,000 songs. You're being stupid.
Honestly, like almost at every single point, at every like iPads, I was like, that is fucking bullshit. Like, who would want that? That's crazy.
What's the point?
I was like, so we've got screens. I'm like, it's my I've got a laptop. So yeah, I've learned that that's my knee jerk and that to not trust it.
Wow, what an interesting thing to learn.
Yeah, like I feel the resistance and then I'm like, stop, breathe, look around. Maybe this is helpful. Like, what's just me doing?
Not sure that's the best yardstick. But I think the other thing about like all of the like from early adopter through the middle to late adopter, there's no like all of those people are needed to be on that spectrum. Do you know what I mean? There's no like better place. You're not like cooler if you're the early adopter than a late adopter. You know, there would be pros and cons of being anywhere along that spectrum.
True. You miss like it's going to cost you on both sides. Like the guys who just early adopt anything because it's new are going to waste a lot of time and money on shit that's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
Late adopters are going to miss the advantages of a new innovation for ages. Also, it's a thing I've realized if I look at any of my career choices, which are like illustration, drawing, calligraphy, tattoo to a degree, these are all like very old technologies. Like all of them. I was thinking that about the tattooing thing the other day. I was like, you can tweak the tools to a degree, but essentially like the technology is a sharp object will penetrate your skin and put ink in. Yeah. Really, that's it.
Yeah. I think that suits you beautifully.
Thanks, Jess.
I know. I'm like, I hope this comes out as the compliment that it's intended.
My old granny soul.
Your old soul. Yeah, your beautiful old soul.
Thanks, love. Remember last week we were talking about you and your baby soul?
My brand new soul. I was
like, what?
I feel
this is amazing.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that quite a lot, actually, just holding in the back of my mind. I'm like, oh, yeah, I definitely haven't done this before. Anyway, darling, well, it's time to go and celebrate your beautiful old soul and my stupid baby soul.
Yeah.
Because it's your fucking birthday and you got shit to do, girl.
I got so many Ferrero Rochers to eat this afternoon. I'm
very
busy. I need to leave immediately.
Well, I love you dearly.
I love
Miss
you, my
Alice
friend.
Eady. Happy
Thank you,
birthday.
as always. And happy birthday for last week.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And hey, come to our fucking live show. For those who follow us on Instagram at ImposterPod, if you don't, you should, for excellent cake content, because we ran a little comp last week as promised, following our chat about the Women's Weekly birthday cake book, which I bought a copy for you, Alice.
Oh my God, amazing. I mean, this content was, listen, in terms of, I don't love the word content, but I'm using it. Did this content go viral? In a small way. Yeah. I mean, some viruses
end in pig cakes. And that's the lesson that we've learned.
Oh my God, what a little teaser. There's going to be a pig cake at our live show. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's not a euphemism for something else. Earlier when I got here, Jessamy's like, we're making a pig cake. I'm like,
know
ew.
what this means. But I realised in talking about it, and we've also announced our first special guest, Sarah Firth, who is speaking of amazing comics artist, she is absolutely incredible.
She's so good.
She's about to release her very first graphic novel, she's been working on it for like 7 years. It's incredible.
Smart.
She's so smart. And fun and funny and just an all-round A+ human being. But I was talking to her about pig cake and I don't know, saying something along the lines of like basically like, are you guys going to be okay with making pig cake, I think, in a roundabout way. And I was like, the great thing is, even if we fuck it up royally, it's great comedy value. So we win either way. Either we get an excellent pig cake or we get a pig of a pig cake, and we win either way.
All pig cakes, you get the pig cake that you need, right?
You get the pig cake you deserve.
Fuck.
Okay, bye. I love you.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram at ImposterPod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.